The laughter hit harder than the wine in front of hundreds of powerful guests. A billionaire's sister tipped her glass, letting it spill down the black maid's shoulder like liquid arrogance. The room froze, then erupted in cruel amusement. Cameras flashed, whispers spread like wildfire, but the woman they mocked didn't flinch. She simply looked up, calm, unbothered, as if calculating the cost of the insult. Seconds later, her phone would ring. 5 quiet words would leave her lips, and within minutes, a multi-billion-dollar empire would begin to collapse in real time. But for now, the night was just beginning. Before we continue, if you love true stories that inspire, make sure you subscribe. You don't want to miss what happens here. The Linwood estate stood like a monument to old money, gilded, polished, glowing beneath chandeliers the size of small cars. Every year, the city's wealthiest families gathered here for the charity gala, though few had charity in their hearts. The air was thick with perfume, pride, and the subtle competition of people who measured worth in diamonds and last names. Near the entrance, the maid moved with a grace that didn't match her uniform. She carried a silver tray with steady hands, weaving through clusters of guests who barely noticed her existence. She wasn't intimidated, though the room was designed to make those without titles feel small. Her eyes drifted across the hall with a quiet confidence, as if she saw through the marble floors and designer suits to something deeper. Then Vanessa Linwood entered. The Millionaire CEO's sister walked as if she owned the oxygen in the room. Every step deliberate, every smile calculated. Her gown shimmered like liquid gold. Drawing eyes away, gravity pulls planets. She leaned in close to her group of friends, whispering judgments disguised as jokes. Her laugh was sharp, rehearsed, and always a little too loud. That was when she spotted the maid. Her smirk appeared instantly, one of those expressions that carry generations of entitlement behind it. She nudged her friends. "Look, some people really don't belong here," she said, loud enough for the maid to hear, soft enough to pretend she hadn't meant it that way. The maid approached, offering a glass of wine with the same gentle politeness she had shown all evening. But Vanessa didn't accept the drink. Instead, she stepped forward with a perfectly practiced stumble, her hand flicking upward, her elbow just slightly raised. The movement was small, subtle, but intentional. The red wine leapt from the glass and exploded against the maid's uniform, staining the fabric like a wound. Gasps broke through the music. Then came the laughter, sharp, echoing, cruel. Vanessa's friends clutched their pearls and fanned their faces, pretending shock while delighting in the spectacle. Vanessa shrugged dramatically. "Oops," she said, feigning innocence poorly. But the maid didn't cower. She didn't apologize. She didn't look away. She simply wiped her hands, slow and steady, her expression unreadable. There was no anger, just a quiet, measured stillness that unsettled anyone who happened to meet her gaze. If Vanessa had been paying closer attention, she might have noticed something in those eyes. Not fear, not humiliation, recognition, calculation, power. But she didn't notice, and no one else did, either. Not yet. The moment the wine hit the maid's uniform, the story began mutating in every corner of the gala. Vanessa's friends retold it the way spoiled aristocrats retell gossip, louder, meaner, with details distorted for dramatic effect. According to one retelling, the maid tripped all over herself. According to another, Vanessa had graciously tried to catch her. Each version stretched further from the truth, and each one made the room ripple with the kind of laughter only people who have forgotten humility are capable of. But while their voices rose, the maid herself moved quietly through the crowd, slipping into a dim side hallway where the music softened to a distant hum. In this quiet corridor, the air felt different, still cooler, almost sacred. She stopped beneath a muted wall sconce, untied her stained apron, and folded it with the care of someone who respected everything, even what others dismissed. She set it gently on a chair, smoothing the fabric once with her palm. For a moment, she closed her eyes. That was when her entire presence shifted. The stillness in her didn't come from shock. It came from choice. Her back straightened, her shoulders settled, and the softness in her posture sharpened into something unmistakable. Authority, the kind that didn't need to be announced because it was felt. A security guard hurried down the hallway, stopping the moment he saw her. His voice dropped respectfully. "Ma'am, is everything all right? Do you need anything?" She lifted a hand, a small gesture, but one that carried weight. "I'm fine," she said, her voice calm and steady. "Just give me a moment." The guard nodded and stepped back as though giving space not to a maid, but to someone far more important. Back in the ballroom, the mood was shifting. Conversations faltered. Heads turned toward the entrance as a group of international investors entered. Men and women in impeccably tailored suits, their presence instantly thickening the air. These weren't social guests. These were people whose signatures moved markets, whose approval built empires. They walked straight to the event coordinator and spoke in low, urgent tones. Then their voices rose just enough for nearby guests to hear. "We're here for Alana Hartwell," one investor said. "We were told she'd meet us tonight." The whisper spread faster than the gossip about Vanessa's stunt. Alana Hartwell. The name traveled from table to table, eyebrow to eyebrow. The CEO behind one of the largest private firms in the country. The woman whose partnership the Linwood family needed desperately. Vanessa, still reenacting her clumsy maid story to her friends, paused mid-sentence when she heard the name float across the room. Her smile flickered. She knew the importance of that meeting. She also knew she hadn't seen anyone who looked remotely like a CEO enter yet. "What does she even look like?" one guest asked. "No idea," another whispered. "But apparently she's already here." Vanessa lifted her chin, scanning the room with a new urgency. Her heart skipped at the possibility, just the possibility, that she had humiliated someone important. What she didn't know was that the truth was already standing in the hallway, quietly removing a stained apron she'd never needed to wear in the first place. The ballroom, once alive with the clinking of glasses and swollen laughter, suddenly softened into a hush. Conversations faded into half-formed whispers as the doors of the side of the hall opened and the woman everyone thought was a maid stepped back inside. Without the apron, she looked unchanged. Same simple dress, same composed face, same quiet grace. But something in her presence had shifted, and the room felt it instantly. She no longer walked like someone doing a job. She walked like someone returning to her rightful place. The investors saw her first. In a heartbeat, the boardroom discipline inside them snapped into place. Chairs scraped. Conversations died mid-sentence. The group of international executives straightened as if a monarch had entered the room. Then, as one, they stood. Their expressions transformed, from curiosity to recognition to genuine respect. Vanessa blinked at the scene, her wine glass halfway to her lips. Why were they standing? Why were they looking at the maid? What in the world was happening? Before confusion fully settled, one of the investors, a tall man with silver hair and a reputation for never showing emotion, stepped forward with surprising urgency. "Ms. Hartwell," he said. "CEO Hartwell, we've been waiting for you." The words sliced through the ballroom like a blade. Gasps erupted like a wave hitting the shore. Heads whipped around. The music faltered. Even the servers, trained to stay neutral through chaos, paused mid-step with trays hovering in midair. Vanessa's fingers loosened in shock, and her glass slipped from her hand, cracking loudly against the marble floor. Red wine pooled over her heels like the embarrassment she couldn't hide. The woman she had mocked, the maid she had laughed at, was Alana Hartwell, the billionaire CEO. The very woman the Linwood family needed to secure the $2.4 billion deal that would save their empire. And Vanessa had spilled wine on her, publicly humiliated her, laughed at her. Alana paused before the investors, offering a calm, warm smile as she shook their hands. Her movements were effortless, polished, almost regal. She spoke softly, her tone steady and welcoming, as though she was greeting old friends rather than major partners whose approval could shift global markets. Guests watched, breath held, struggling to reconcile what they had seen earlier with the woman standing before them now. How had they missed it? How had they mistaken her humility for servitude? As Alana moved through the group, greeting each investor with thoughtful nods and genuine warmth, her eyes subtly drifted across the ballroom and found Vanessa. There was again that unreadable expression, that calm, steady gaze that held no anger, no triumph, no smug satisfaction. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't vengeance. It was something far more unsettling to someone like Vanessa, a reminder that power does not need to be loud, a reminder that respect is not optional, a reminder that actions always return home. Vanessa's breath trembled, her heart pounding against the glittering cage of her dress. Her family watched everything in frozen silence, the realization sinking into their bones like cold water. They hadn't just insulted a maid. They had insulted the woman who held their future in her hands. Panic moved through Charles Linwood long before he reached his daughter. It crept up his spine, tightening with every murmured whisper he caught, with every glance thrown at Vanessa, with every respectful bow made toward Alana Hartwell, the woman he now realized was the most powerful person in the room. His empire stood on a single handshake with her, and his daughter had turned that handshake into an open slap. He found Vanessa standing stiffly near the staircase, her face pale, her mascara smudged, her hands trembling slightly as she tried to gather her composure. The shattered wine glass she dropped earlier felt like a symbol, something broken she could never quite piece back together. "Vanessa," Charles hissed, grabbing her elbow and pulling her into the nearest alcove. "What did you do?" His voice wasn't loud, but it vibrated with a fear she had never heard from him, the kind of fear reserved for men who knew how fast everything they'd built could crumble. Vanessa forced a laugh, shaky and unconvincing. "Dad, it was nothing, just a tiny spill." "Don't lie to me," he snapped. His face had gone gray under the elegant ballroom lights. "I saw the looks. People are whispering that you mocked her, that you—" He stopped himself, swallowing hard. "Do you understand who she is?" Vanessa's throat tightened. "I didn't know. She looked like a maid. How was I supposed to—" "By not humiliating people." Charles spat, his whisper sharp enough to cut. "By not acting like the world belongs to you." Vanessa shrank back as if struck. It was rare for her father to scold her, rarer still for him to look at her with anything resembling disappointment. But this wasn't just disappointment. It was terror, the kind that seeps into every inch of man who realizes too late how easily arrogance can cost billions. Meanwhile, across the room, Alana Hartwell moved through the crowd with a grace so natural it made the surrounding panic feel almost vulgar. She greeted guests with warm smiles, exchanged thoughtful conversation, and made everyone she spoke to feel seen. She carried herself not with dominance, but with ease, the quiet authority of someone who never needed to remind others of her worth. Her calm was the sharpest contrast to Vanessa's unraveling. Charles stared at Alana, watching her laugh gently with an elderly philanthropist. To him, she looked less like a business partner and more like a queen holding court. And at any moment, she could decide whether his kingdom lived or died. "I need to fix this," he whispered, not to Vanessa but to himself. "I have to." He straightened his suit, wiped the sweat from his brow, and walked toward Alana with the careful steps of a man approaching judgment. "Ms. Hartwell," he began softly when he reached her. I wanted to apologize for any misunderstanding this evening. If anything inappropriate occurred, I assure you." Alana turned to him, her expression gentle, attentive. She didn't interrupt. She didn't hurry him. She simply listened. But she also didn't confirm or deny what had happened. She didn't accuse Vanessa. She didn't soothe Charles. She left the truth suspended in the air like a blade. The room watched, every guest holding their breath, waiting to see how a woman publicly humiliated would respond now that she held all the power. And Alana's silence, calm and unbroken, was louder than any speech she could have given. The ballroom's golden glow had dulled into a tense, trembling hush. People still moved, still smiled for appearances, still lifted their glasses, but the light behind their eyes had changed. Something had shifted the moment Alana stepped away with the investors, and although no official announcement had been made, the air felt heavier. Quiet speculation traveled faster than the music drifting from the orchestra. Near the tall windows, Alana Hartwell ended her discussion with the executives and slipped away to a quieter corner of the hall. Her movement was unhurried, her expression serene, so calm that only the sharpest eyes realized the storm about to break would come from her gentleness, not her fury. She lifted her phone. The investors, standing a respectful distance away, watched her with the attentiveness one might give to a surgeon about to make a delicate incision. "Put me through to legal," Alana said softly when the call connected. Her voice was low, warm, steady, not the voice of someone seeking revenge, but of someone enforcing a boundary that should never have been crossed. "Yes, I need to withdraw from the Linwood partnership." She paused, listening, her eyes drifting toward the chandelier-lit crowd. "No, not angry," she continued, "just unwilling. I can't move forward with a partnership where dignity is optional and respect is selective." Her words were gentle, but each one landed with the weight of a verdict. Inside the ballroom, curiosity sharpened into concern. A waiter paused mid-sentence. A cluster of socialites pretended to admire a floral arrangement while clearly eavesdropping. Rumors spread like ripples. First a whisper, then a murmur, then a quiet panic threading through the room like electricity. By the time Alana ended the call, half the guests already sensed the truth. The deal was slipping through the Linwood family's fingers. Charles Linwood felt it before he heard it, the tightening in his chest, the taste of dread, the sense that the empire he clung to was beginning to tilt, as if someone had quietly removed the foundation beneath it. He watched Alana pocket her phone, and a bead of sweat rolled down his temple. All around him, eyes began to shift in his direction, sympathy in some, thinly veiled satisfaction in others. Vanessa noticed it too. Fear clawed up her throat as she hurried toward Alana, the desperation in her steps betraying the elegance she usually wore like armor. "Ms. Hartwell, Alana, please," she began, voice trembling. Her eyes were red, mascara smudged in streaks. "It wasn't what it looked like. I didn't mean—" Alana turned to her with a calmness, so composed it bordered on mercy. "Intention," she said quietly, "matters less than behavior." The sentence sliced through the noise like crystal breaking. Vanessa's breath stuttered. I was just... "Respect isn't something you owe only to those you believe are important," Alana added gently. "It's something you give regardless of title." Vanessa wilted. The investors, having overheard enough to understand the situation, approached Alana with concerned expressions. Yet not one of them questioned her decision. They stood behind her, silent, steady, supportive, because integrity in their world was more valuable than any contract. Behind them, the ballroom watched the billionaire CEO not punish, not lash out, but simply step away. And that quiet withdrawal spoke louder than any public condemnation ever could. The morning light streamed to the massive windows of the Linwood penthouse, but it brought no warmth. It brought headlines. Screaming, scrolling, unavoidable headlines. Financial news outlets erupted across every screen. $2.4 Hartwell Linwood deal terminated. Investors pull out as Linwood Empire faces unprecedented setback. CEO Hartwell walks away. Integrity over money. The words felt like a sledgehammer striking the walls of Charles Linwood's carefully constructed world. Charles sat behind his mahogany desk, hands clenched around a cup of coffee that had long since gone cold. He couldn't remember the last time he felt this helpless. Stock tickers flashed red across his monitors, falling faster than he could process. Board members were already calling, demanding explanations. They were furious, anxious, incredulous. Every call, every email, Every message carried the same unspoken question. How did this happen? He remembered every humiliating detail. Vanessa laughing as the wine spilled down the maid's uniform, her friends echoing her cruel amusement. How little he had intervened, how blind he'd been to the arrogance festering in his own household. Each memory carried its own weight, pressing on his chest, turning the office into a cage of shame and panic. His empire, built over decades, seemed suddenly fragile, vulnerable to a single misjudgment. Vanessa sat across from him, head in her hands, still trying to process what had happened. Her pride, her entitlement, her laughter at the gala, they had cost more than she could imagine. Every second replayed in her mind, a reminder of the power she had underestimated. The very woman she had mocked, the maid, had held the fate of billions in her hands, and she had walked away with nothing but dignity intact. Meanwhile, miles away, in a sleek office overlooking the city skyline, Alana Hartwell moved, as if the world were exactly as it should be. The sunlight fell on the sharp angles of her desk and the rows of neatly organized proposals before her. Each document represented a company built on the principles she believed in: respect, integrity, fairness. Not wealth, not arrogance, not entitlement. Principles. She picked up the first proposal, read through the numbers, nodded at the team, and signed. Then another, calm, deliberate, methodical, unhurried. There was no gloating, no triumph. She did not relish the collapse of a deal or the panic in the Linwood boardroom. She only appreciated clarity, order, and the knowledge that she could move forward with people who understood what true respect meant. Her phone buzzed with inquiries, but she answered only briefly, redirecting calls and appointments, keeping her focus on creating opportunities rather than celebrating someone else's failure. The city stretched out before her, buildings reflecting sunlight like jewels, a world full of possibility. The chaos that had consumed the Linwood empire could not touch her. She remained untouched, unmoved, resolute. For Charles and Vanessa, the collapse was catastrophic, painful, and unavoidable. For Alana, it was simply another morning, another step in the quiet, unstoppable ascent of someone who had never underestimated the cost of dignity, or the value of walking away when it mattered most. Weeks had passed since the gala, yet the memory of that night lingered in Vanessa Linwood's mind like a shadow she could not shake. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the calm, steady gaze of the woman she had humiliated, the woman who had reminded her that dignity and respect were not optional, even in a room full of the powerful. It was this lingering weight that led her to the community center funded by Alana Hartwell's company, a place buzzing with youthful energy and quiet ambition. Vanessa had rehearsed her apology countless times, hoping that perhaps sincerity could mend what arrogance had broken. Inside, the center hummed with life. Young entrepreneurs sat in clusters, notebooks open, ideas sparking across the room like static electricity. Alana stood at the front, addressing the group with a presence that was both warm and commanding. Her words were deliberate, each one carrying the weight of experience, yet the encouragement of possibility. Treat every person with dignity, she said. The way you behave in small moments, the moments no one is watching, defines who you become. That is how legacies are built. Vanessa watched from the doorway, hesitating. She saw the young attendees lean forward, captivated not just by Alana's words, but by the respect she showed every individual. Even the interns, carrying stacks of papers, received the same attention as the guest speaker from a major firm. Each handshake, each nod, each gentle correction carried with it the message that people matter. Vanessa felt a pang of realization, sharper than any financial loss or public embarrassment. The lesson was bigger than her ego, bigger than the Linwood empire. Summoning courage, Vanessa stepped forward. Her voice trembled, but her words were genuine. Alana, I want to apologize. I shouldn't have humiliated you that night. I was wrong, and I'm truly sorry. Alana turned to her, listening quietly. There was no immediate forgiveness, no quick absolution. Instead, she gave Vanessa a measured look, calm but unyielding, as though weighing not her words but her heart. Sincerity is a start, Alana replied. But remember, actions shape legacies. Even a moment of arrogance can echo far longer than you expect. It is what you do, not what you say, that defines your character. Vanessa nodded, humbled. She left the room slowly, each step echoing against the polished floors, feeling smaller yet more aware. As she paused at the exit, she watched Alana return to her work, greeting each employee with the same unwavering respect she had shown the young entrepreneurs. No hierarchy dictated her kindness. No title amplified it. She treated the receptionist, the janitor, the intern, and the visiting dignitary with equal attention and care. Vanessa realizing what she had learned too late. Power is fleeting. Deals can be lost. Wealth can crumble. But character, unyielding, principled, respectful, endures. Disrespect, however small, can cost far more than money ever will. In that quiet moment, standing on the threshold of Alana's world, Vanessa understood the truth that the Linwood family had ignored for generations. Legacy is built not by privilege, but by how you treat every soul you encounter along the way. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine, so do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.